Good morning, everyone. Virgo here. It is June 23rd, 2020. We have zipped right through this month. And happy Tuesday morning to everyone. So I have gotten a tremendous amount of emails and questions in my comments section with regards to what in the world is LightTajiriBey doing to the written English language. There's even been a post on Facebook that has been screenshotted and sent to me by Jamal of Rise of the Moors, actually reprimanding LightTajiriBey for doing what she's doing to the English written language. And I want to give you some back history on this because I find this to be very amusing and highly entertaining. All right, so here is the story. The tribal sovereign laws is what she must have gotten a hold of. And I've mentioned these in the past. This is with regards to the federal government, treaties, and the Native American or Indian Council that is within the federal government that assists in deciding, or did assist when they were accepting new ones, in deciding tribal land, agreeing on what's going to be in the treaties, and deciding what bullet points need to be met in order for a particular nation, like the nation of Pueblo Indians, for example, the nation of the Cherokee Nation, deciding what it is that is required in order for one to actually prove that they are a part of that tribe. One of the things that was decided long ago, and I don't have the specific year because I'm doing this off the cuff, but if you look up tribal sovereignty law, this is something you'll be able to find fairly easily. One of the things that was decided during the time that they were actually providing the Native Americans with their own land. And let me real quickly just say something about that. There are wars all the time. There are scenarios that are just as terrible as the scenario of the massacre of the Native Americans or the indigenous. The indigenous of North America, for example, were of course the Native American tribes, like mine, the Cherokee and the Cree. Also, many other tribes that we are aware of if we just take a peek into Native American history. However, the colonizers of this land won that war in whatever way they won it, being as horrible as it was, they still won the land. They conquered the Native American tribes large enough, with a large enough sweep, that they were able to take over the land. This has happened in every country over and over again throughout time. And the bottom line is it will probably continue to happen over and over again. And as terrible as that sounds, and as terrible as the methods that they used were and probably will continue to be, the bottom line is reality is reality. And when a group of individuals colonize onto someone else's land and they win the war, that war is won. And from that point forward, you kind of have to deal with the people that are colonizing. That's just the way it goes, folks. I know it sucks, but things change. And that's exactly what happened in this scenario with the Native Americans. Now, having said that, the federal government came to terms with several of the tribes in order for those tribes to have their own land. They're called reservations. Many of you have probably heard of them. LightTajiriBey has decided that that's what she wants to attempt to do, to prove that she's indigenous and her people, the Moors, are indigenous, and thereby they want to have their own government, they want to have their own jails, they want to have their own courts, their own police force, and they want sovereignty as they see it. What they don't understand is that sovereignty is limited on the Native American reservations also. It isn't an all or nothing scenario. And for example, there are scenarios where you 100% still have to go through the federal government to get certain things done. Usually the Native American tribes are required to have go through the federal government to get their utilities, for example. A lot of these things are actually already purchased, and there really is no way to start over again. For example, creating your own water company may be a possibility, but you're still going to have to contract with the federal government, as all Native American tribes do. But without going into all of the politics of this, I want to try to stick to the subject of this video, although I have to admit it's difficult to do so. The main reason it's difficult is because LightTajiriBey is misleading people in a way that is so many different directions that it's hard for me to stick to just one, but I'm going to try. During the time that the different tribes were actually receiving their lands and their reservations began through the Indian Council, one of the things that was a bullet point for them in the law was that they had to speak their own language. I guess LightTajiriBey got wind of this, probably from a previous video of mine, embarrassingly enough, because I had made a comment that in order to even be considered as your own tribe, you had to have your own language. It was a bullet point in tribal sovereignty law. Well, she ran with that, and this is what we got. If you'll notice, all of these videos have to do with all of the different court sessions and everything that she tries to pretend like she's putting out there and has some sort of authority. In her own mind, she may actually believe that she does, as we haven't been able to determine whether she's mentally ill or just one of the most divisive and, well, I won't go any further. We're just not really sure what's really going on with Light. Personally, I think she's just a flat-out con artist, but there are others that actually think she needs some mental help. Either way, what she is doing is misleading yet again through language now. All right, I'm going to take a look at one of these so that I can try to show you what it is that I'm talking about, although many of you have already said, what's going on with this crazy person? Let's look at the last video that she put up. Okay, this is LightTajiriBey for those of you that don't know. And if you'll notice, the title of this video is all kinds of misspelled. Now, the funny part about this is it doesn't stop at the title of the video. If you go on down here, you will notice that there are paragraphs written of all kinds of crazy misspelled English words. Now, originally it appeared as though what she had done was picked up an old English dictionary and started using the King's writings in order to put this together, which of course would be hilarious because that would mean she'd be borrowing from the Europeans. But it appears that she tweaked that in addition. For example, she tends to, at times, just put an E at the end of certain words. And then at other times, she uses a totally different set of words to make what she thinks sounds like the word, such as of, she uses UV. Have, she uses two V's. The interesting part about this is that if you actually look at what makes languages a language, and I mean this is like literally the where people go in and study this, at Harvard, for example, when you're studying different languages, there is a very specific thing that is stated over and over again. Let's take a look at that. All right, it says a language is a complex system of communication, spoken or written, verbal or nonverbal. And that's true. The interesting thing about this is languages always start spoken, and that's just the way that it is. All right, actually, natural languages are spoken or signed. Written language is an artificial creation made by man, and this includes also systems like Braille for blind people. There are many languages that nowadays lack entirely a written form. The idea that spoken language comes before written language is reinforced by two aspects. Humans learn to speak first, and then they are taught how to write. And in human history, spoken language developed first, as opposed to written language that developed later. Now, even if we were able to provide LightTajiri with the possibility that all of these crazy words are somehow a different language because of the fact that they have an extra E, an extra V, or possibly a UV instead of an OF, even if we were able to grant her that leeway on this, there would still be the fact that she's still speaking English. See, writing your own language, okay, means speaking your own language first. That's what makes it native. That's what makes it indigenous. LightTajiriBey is not transforming the English language into an indigenous language as what is needed in that bullet point for you to be considered your own nation. Actually, all she's doing is taking the English language and writing it out using pieces of information from Old English and simple, ignorant misspelling. Why is this so dangerous? Well, I have to agree with Jamal on this, because it makes you look even more ignorant than you might have started out misspelling the English language in the first place. This is absolutely misspelling the English language, and you have not and never will be able to transform an indigenous language. It is there prior to. Hence the actual statement indigenous or native, the beginning, not transforming afterwards. I'm sorry, LightTajiriBey, but you failed. And continuing on in this manner, is doing a major disservice to the people that are following you. You see, you speak the language first, and if it's truly native, then you can come up with a way to write that language, just as the Cherokee did, just as the Navajo did, and so on, and so on, and so on. Every other culture out there also. You are doing nothing but making a complete fool of yourself and your followers. And this would never, by the way, pass as an indigenous language. I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to think about this. I also wanted to make sure that you had the bullet points available so that you knew what was required. Now, going a little bit further than that, the United States government and the Indian Council aren't even considering adding more tribes and more reservation lands. They haven't been for many, many years. But I understand that this is what she is doing in an attempt to try to make the people that follow her believe that she has some kind of a grasp on how they can become their own tribe and use their own language to claim that bullet point in the tribal sovereignty law. It's really quite sickening, and it should stop. And I hope those that are following her recognize that this is the desperate attempt of a con artist, and certainly nothing that somebody who claims to be of a authoritarian status, as she does, would ever attempt to do. This, quite frankly, is an embarrassment, and it's a total disservice to those that you claim to care about. All right, everybody, I'll be back later with a video from Snoop for Truth on common law. And I hope everybody is having a wonderful morning. Bye-bye.